Welcome to Pistons Talk Podcast post-game show. Hope you guys are having a great Monday night. If you watched that game, you probably are. That was a complete ass beating. And I'm glad. I really am. We talked about last game. How would this team respond after losing two straight? And they did exactly what they did when they lost two straight to the Hawks and the Cavs. They came out very, very pissed off, and the Pelicans had no idea what happened. And I want to bring up this player because I felt like he was the main reason why they got out to the lead as soon as they did, and it was Asar Thompson. Asar Thompson just defensively, first possession, he strips the ball from Trey Murphy. Obviously, Trey Murphy gets hurt, doesn't play for the rest of the game. Hopefully, it's nothing serious. But his defense was just felt immediately. And this was a game where Asar, JD, Tobias, everyone was bringing the ball up the court. Something that we talked about yesterday with Zarek. If you guys haven't seen the podcast, definitely go check it out. But we were kind of talking about why isn't Asar bringing the ball up the court? Why isn't Jalen Durham bringing the ball up the court? The Pistons were so dynamic when those two were just bringing the ball up the court and letting Cade play off ball and letting secondary guys kind of play off ball, and that's exactly what they did. They really pushed the pace, and they were making the extra pass tonight. And defensively, they just completely shocked the Pelicans. They only scored 13 points. 13 points in a quarter. Pistons dropped 35. The last time the Pistons held an opponent to 13 points was 1950 per the FanDuel broadcast, which is wild to think about with all the good defensive teams that the Pistons have had. But, they get a 35-13 lead to end the first. Going into the second, they just extended the lead. The bench unit did their thing. Simone Fontecchio, in my opinion, best game of the season. Really efficient night. 23 points, 5 for 5 from 3, 9 out of 10 from the field. And I thought the Pistons did a very, very good job of the way that they wanted to keep Zion away from the painted area. Obviously, Zion still did his thing, scored a lot of points tonight, but, secondary stars like CJ McCollum only had 3 points. But just the way that they held the Pelicans to 21% shooting in the first half, you guys, they go out and have a 63-32 halftime score. Like, just the way that they were defending, they were communicating, they had a game plan, and I was expecting this team to have a bounce back game. I didn't know it was going to be this big of an ass whooping. It almost reminded me of the Bulls game, if you guys remember, right before All-Star break, where they went into Chicago and just completely embarrassed the Bulls. Like, we've now seen what this team is capable defensively when they're all locked in and when they're taking the game seriously. Ron Holland said at the halftime interview with Johnny Kane that, before the game, all of them collectively said, we need to get back to playing Detroit Pistons basketball. We need to go out and just win this game, defend our ass off, and get back in the win column. And that's exactly what they did. Coming out of halftime, the Pelicans kind of had some life. Pistons were up as much as 30. They got it down to 20, but it didn't really matter. Bruce Brown got ejected in the third quarter, which was such a wild sequence because Pistons clearly fouled him, and the ref was staring right at Bruce Brown. Tobias brings the ball up the court. Bruce Brown gets ejected in 5 seconds. Maybe Bruce wanted this the night off, but there was that ejection, which I thought was really funny. But the Pistons pushed the pace, scoring in the painted area, making 3-point shots, got the lead back up to 29 in the third, and even more. But the starters all left by the end of the third. You didn't see Tobias, you didn't see Cade, you didn't see Asar. Asar did have a kind of a weird injury. I don't know if it's an injury, but he did kind of hobble off the court. Zion kind of kicked him in his shin, and then he landed awkwardly on his ankle. But the end of the third, it was 88-63, and the bench unit just completely close this game out. Dennis Schroeder, Ron Holland, which we're probably going to talk about. I actually wrote something down about Ron that I thought was kind of funny. We can kind of discuss it towards the end of these quarter notes, but just complete team victory for this team. I really don't have anything to say, but what I wanted to talk about with Ron was he tried to use Isaiah Stewart as a shield. I don't know if you guys saw this. So Ron had so many attempts to have like a poster dunk tonight, and he tried to use Isaiah Stewart as like straight up as a shield, which kind of made me laugh. I was like, bro, Ron, what are you doing? But I'm sure Ron will definitely have um, one of those big dunks uh, to either in the postseason or in the regular season. But there was that. There was also an instance. If you guys want to go back and watch, Isaiah Stewart got a technical tonight. I don't really know what for, but the whole bench started clapping. And then when Jose Alvarado missed the free throw, they got even louder. And, from Cade to Tobias to Fred Vincent, they were all smiling and laughing that he got a technical and the fact that Jose Alvarado missed the technical foul free throw. But the final score of this game, you guys, 127 to 81, 46-point win for your Pistons. Second largest win on the road in franchise history. For you guys that are curious, the largest win on the road in franchise history was over 50 against the Celtics in the early 2000s. So it's been a minute since the last time that the Pistons have won by that many on the road. And this is the first time that they've won versus the New Orleans Pelicans since Derrick Rose hit that game winner over Drew Holiday. Derrick Rose, yeah, the guy that's retired. So it's been a minute since the Pistons have won in the Big Easy. I do want to get into comments and questions with this post-game podcast like we usually do. I want to open up the show to you guys and just kind of talk about this game. So we'll go to Jay Hart. He gets the first comment of the show. And it said, good-ass game tonight. Another great performance by Stu. His moments in the playoffs will be epic and really showcase his skill. Our second unit is special and can help us lead to a first-round win. Talked about this yesterday with Czar about just like we kind of pinpointed different players and like how they could possibly impact a playoff series, Jay Hart. But I do want to kind of circle back to your Stu comment. I agree. Like Stu defensively, I think kind of gets overlooked maybe by the casual fan or, even just an NBA fan for that matter, because Stu does get in a lot of the scuffles, and you look at the box score, doesn't look like he's doing a whole lot, but defensively, just the way he can protect the rim, the way this team plays with so much more energy when he's playing. His defense, I think, is infectious with a lot of his teammates around him. And I agree. Like when the second unit is firing on all cylinders like that, you're going to go up against teams that might not have a bench like yours. Like if you're getting this type of effort and consistency from a Simone Fontecchio, because I think Simone over the past couple of games defensively has really stepped it up. And if his shot is falling, I don't expect him to go 5 for 5 from 3 and 9 out of 10 from the field every night. That's unrealistic. But if he can kind of get back to his old form that he had last year, I think that adds a whole different dynamic to your bench. And it could really help you get back into games and also possibly, pad leads like you did tonight. But really liked what I saw out of the second unit and how just the way that they were playing. Someone said, no break tonight. No, I'm honestly, Johnny, like usually I do commercial breaks after the Q&A segment, but I'm straight going to do this. I haven't eaten dinner yet, so I don't want to be on too long, but we'll probably keep this podcast like around 20 minutes or so because I'm honestly starving, but I still want to do these Q&A portions of the podcast with you guys. Got a comment from Alex Jasper. Beef stew for president. Ron and Nassar are menaces to society. Pray for this league in 2 years when it's all truly starts to fully click for these young role players. I love the energy, Alex. I love it. Yeah, beef stew for president, love it. I agree. Like, I think a lot of fans, like during the 2023 draft with Asar, there were certain people in the fan base that really wanted Cam Whitmore. Others wanted Asar. I was kind of in the Cam Whitmore camp because I thought he would be a good player, but Asar Thompson has just kind of completely changed my mind in terms of like defensively, how good he is. His passing, I think, is very underrated. He had a beautiful no look pass to K tonight. But just the way that Asar has developed as a ball handler, as a playmaker, as an initiator defensively, I think we all know what we're getting. A really good perimeter defender, probably the best perimeter defender on this team. Night in and night out, he's taking the challenge of taking on the best player. And I think Ron Holland, the thing with him that I'm very intrigued with is I don't even really think Ron has fully like figured out how good he can possibly be, because the way he can finish around the rim, just with layups and tough drives and wild finishes, it seems like they always go in. But I think the shot for Ron is real. I think he can develop into a good mid-range jump shooter, a good three-point shooter, but having a tandem of those two is possibly your small forward and power forward of the future. I think a lot of Pistons fans should be very excited if they both can develop somewhat of a jump shot. Yeah, to your point, like, yeah, the league should pray because you have a tandem of two forwards that can defend, that can attack the rim, that are high flyers. Like, they're very good basketball players at the end of the day. Just hoping that Fred Vincent can work his magic with these two young forwards on this team. But I've been really impressed with both of them. More with Ron because just the way that he's been able to adjust. Uh, because once Asar came back, his role in minutes haven't been consistent, I should say, because like when Asar was out with blood clots, Ron was getting a healthy 20 minutes a game. Now some nights he might not play more than like 10 minutes. And garbage time tonight, obviously he played a little bit more, but I really like the way that he's just stayed ready and just been a professional. And it's really exciting to see what he could possibly be in the future for this team. Want to get to Dolly has a comment about Fontecchio. Fontecchio found his shot tonight. Pistons were focused and under control. Great win. I agree. Like I was so happy that he had a good game because I feel like a lot of the fan base has really been on his ass, and I get it. Like when you're a guy that comes back, you get re-signed for a 2-year deal, and like the one thing that a lot of fans this summer were talking about was should Simone Fontecchio start? Like I remember that was actually like a conversation this summer, across social media, and like obviously he's struggled to really find his shot, but I think over the past like 2 or 3 games, he's getting a little bit more comfortable in his role. Obviously, his role with Monty Williams to JB Bickerstaff, I think, is completely different. I think that's why there's been a little bit of struggle there. And also, you have to account the foot surgery that he did have very late in the offseason. So he didn't have a full summer to get his body in shape. But I think if he's coming into form late March, early April, that's great if you're a Piston fan because the playoffs are, right around the corner. If he's going to give you this type of production and this type of effort defensively and making the right reads, making the right passes, uh you know being that weak side defender, crashing the glass, like Fontecchio's a very, very good backup power forward to back up Tobias Harris currently, but really like the way he played tonight. Obviously, I know I mentioned it earlier, I don't expect him to shoot 90% from the field and hit all his threes. But if he can just give you what he was doing last season, I think this bench has a whole different dynamic. And I think a lot of Pistons fans would be very, very happy with his production night in and night out. I got a comment from Johnny. It's great to get this blowout win after the last 2 games, even though if a contributing factor was the Pelicans' inability to make a shot most of the game. Yeah, the Pelicans are so weird to me. Like I really thought that going into the season, they were going to be a team that at least competes for a playing spot in the Western Conference. Obviously, DeJounte Murray getting injured first game of the year, and then he comes back, and then he gets another injury, and he's out for the year. The Brandon Ingram saga, I think, was looming over their franchise for a while. Obviously, because he wanted an extension, Pelicans didn't want to extend him, and I think they were just relieved just to get rid of him and trade him. But they do have some interesting pieces. I think Zion Williamson is a very good player. Trey Murphy, Herb Jones. I like Jose Alvarado. They have some good pieces. I don't really know what's going to happen with them this summer. Could they possibly blow it up? Maybe. Are there some players on that team that I like? Absolutely. I love Trey Murphy. He's kind of like a dream target for me, if I'm being honest with you guys, for the Pistons. I like his, 3-point shooting ability, and defensively, he's a dog. I'd be lying to you guys if I said I wouldn't be intrigued of a Trey Murphy on the Pistons, but that's a team I would keep an eye on if I'm a fan this summer, because we always talk about, what's the next big move on this podcast. What are players that the Pistons could target? Who are teams that the Pistons could look at? I would look at the Pelicans if I'm a Piston fan, because I'm sure that front office and ownership isn't happy with spending the money that they're spending and being a ping pong team, a lottery team. So keep an eye on them this summer if you are a Detroit Piston fan. I had a comment from my guy Shift God. All last game did was wake this team up even more. Let's keep going. We mentioned that. We mentioned about, like, they lost 2 in a row previously, and then they went on that 7-game win streak, and they just, they played pissed. They came out, they knew defensively they had to take care of business, and you have a Miami Heat team next, which is going to be an ESPN nationally televised game, mind you. You should be able to take care of the Heat if you played the way that you played tonight. Like, no issues. There's no Jimmy Butler there anymore. They have Andrew Wiggins. Bam Adebayo is still a very good player, but I think that's a very winnable game. And as long as you don't let Tyler Hero absolutely go berserk, because anytime Tyler Hero sees the Pistons, I don't get it. It's pure chaos anytime we play the Heat. I'm hoping it's another blowout. I don't think my chest can take another wild finish with the Miami Heat. I really don't think it can, but it should be a really fun game because we're going to be on national TV. The Heat games, for whatever reason, every game this season have gone down to the wire. They've been very entertaining. But hopefully Tyler Hero doesn't go nuclear. Hopefully he just has a bad night. I got a comment from Win25. Shout out to him. Feel bad for Holland. Should have had 3 major dunks tonight. Only got 1. His athleticism is incredible. Very excited about him. Yeah, some of the dunks tonight, like I felt like he was just trying to just put someone on a poster tonight. And I think he will definitely have a poster this season or in the postseason. I mentioned earlier in the podcast, if you didn't hear already, but really like the kid. I think there's a lot to like with him. Offensively, I think he's still a work in progress, very raw, but all the physical tools that he has, I think that's why so many GMs always draft guys like him in the top 5 because of potential and what he may or may not turn into. But I'm pretty confident that Ron can figure out a jump shot in the long term, if I'm being honest with you guys. Mark Flood, can we beat the Knicks? If we match up with the New York Knicks in the playoffs, if we finish with the 6th seed, Knicks finish with the 3rd seed, I think it'll be a very interesting matchup. I think where we have an advantage with the Knicks is our bench, because I think we have a better bench. But playoff basketball is a lot different from regular season basketball, Mark. I will say that. There are certain plays that coaches don't even show during the regular season until playoff basketball. And I'm sure JB is holding on to plays that they're working on behind closed doors, and they haven't fully unleashed yet. But I think if the Pistons were to face the Knicks, in my opinion, that is the best possible matchup for them. I don't like the Bucks against the Pistons. Giannis is hard to keep off the free throw line. Brook Lopez torches the Pistons for whatever reason every time he plays them. And Damian Lillard is Damian Lillard. Even though he's a lot older, he's battle tested, he's been in the playoffs, he can hit big time shots. I would not want to see the Milwaukee Bucks in the first round. The Indiana Pacers is another team. I know a lot of Pistons fans want to see them just to kind of rekindle that rivalry. But Indiana, to me, is a team that I would not want to see because of a few players. Pascal Siakam always torches the Pistons because we don't really have a body that can handle him down low in the post. Miles Turner has just torched us from beyond the arc, kind of like Brook Lopez has. Tyrese Halliburton, for what it's worth, he's had some okay games against the Pistons, but never count him out. He's been heating up as of late. TJ McConnell is another guy that comes off the bench for the Pacers. He's a guy that always seems to have like some of his best games against the Pistons. And then you have like good defenders like Andrew Nebhart who always give Cade some fits. I think Nebhart probably defends Cade Cunningham the best out of every just defender that we've seen this season. I would not want to see the Pacers if I'm the Pistons. I think the Knicks, to me, would be the best matchup because I know that their players are they're not going to be 100% healthy given the way Tom Thibodeau just rides his starting five, playing them high minutes night in and night out. They don't have a bench like the Detroit Pistons do. They don't really have a Malik Beasley. They have a Deuce McBride, but I think we can all agree Malik Beasley's a better player. We have Isaiah Stewart coming off our bench. Obviously, they're star-studded with Jalen Brunson, Karl Anthony Towns, Mikal Bridges, OG Anunoby. I get that. I understand that. But I think that they match up pretty well with the Knicks. Cade Cunningham has had some of his best games inside Madison Square Garden. I don't know what it is, but he loves playing inside MSG and kind of feels like a Knicks Pistons first round matchup. I'd like it from a national aspect because a lot of eyes will be on the Pistons. And I think that would be great for the league. But for me personally, as of right now, I'd like to see the Knicks. I know about a couple weeks ago I said the Pacers, but the more I've thought about it, it's just you don't really have an answer for Pascal currently. And I think that would be a really, really big problem for me personally. We do have a comment asking about Zion, or just more of a question. Any chance we trade for Zion this offseason? Would love to have him be our four of the future. Probably not. Not because he's. I don't think they would, just because of the contract. And that might be kind of like a cheap way out of saying like, why wouldn't the Pistons go after Zion? Like the talent's there. It's just, I think during his young NBA career, he just hasn't shown the ability to stay healthy. And then there's the off the court stuff that, you hear. I don't know if Detroit is a good fit for him, off the court. And if you guys want to do more research on that, I definitely advise you to. And you probably know what I'm talking about without me saying it. But I think as a basketball player, Zion makes a whole lot of sense, but you have to take the contract into account. And you also have to, look at Cade's going to be on a max contract as well, a rookie max, mind you. But Cade's still going to be making over $40 million next year. And he'd be the highest paid player. I think for, a future power forward, it'll be interesting to see how we play in the playoffs. Now, if Tobias Harris gets exposed, Trajan Langdon might look to upgrade that position. I'm not going to put too much stock into second round picks right now, but I will say I think Bobby Klitman is at least a rotational player. Maybe they move Asar Thompson as the long-term four, but I don't really think Zion Williamson is the solution for the Pistons. I think Zion does get moved eventually because I don't think it's going to work out in New Orleans, and I'm sure he wants to, win more basketball games in his career. But I know Caden Zion would be really fun, but I just think it's the off the court stuff that kind of waves like red flags. Being late to team flights, and not taking being in shape seriously. Showing up to camp like overweight every year. Obviously, he looked really thin and in good shape right now, but it's just not taking it fully seriously. And I don't really think the Pistons can really afford to have a player that doesn't take their conditioning seriously. How many wins should we get to remain the 6th seed? I want the Pistons the 6th seed ASAP. I want to say the magic number is 8. Yeah, kind of like when Conda Forever said. I think it is 8. Don't quote me on that. I think it's 8 or 9 for them to lock up that playoff seeding to finish in 6th place in the East. But honestly, I agree with you, Bayern. I'd love to keep the 6th seed. I'd love to match up with the Knicks personally. I don't want to see the Pacers or the Bucks. I just don't, because I feel like Pistons might steal a game or 2 or even 3 possibly, but like those teams are just they're good. Like like I know Stu does a good job on Giannis, but like you're not going to hold down Giannis forever. Pacers have complementary above average players like a Siakam and Turner who can really torch you. I'd rather see the Knicks because I think the Pistons just match up well with them. We have a comment from Wiz Blue. Sometimes I forget Paul Reed is only 25 and not a 10-year vet. Yeah, he was a G League MVP. He was awesome. Like honestly, I love Paul Reed because he doesn't really complain about his role. He goes out there and just plays hard, good vet, just a vibes guy, if you will. And I love the fact that he was willing to come back to play for the Pistons after they cut him on a veteran's minimum for the remainder of the season. It kind of tells you just the culture that JB Bickerstaff and Trajan Langdon are building. But yeah, sometimes you do forget Paul Reed is only 25. Not 30. But honestly, I think that maybe you have conversations of bringing him back. You never really know. He's just a stay ready guy, good bench guy, good vet for these young guys. I have a comment from Trayshawn Thomas. This is actually his first time commenting and watching. He's been watching for months. Shout out to you, Trayshawn. Appreciate it, man. Have a comment from David Kennard. I want to see Waters more. He's intriguing. He definitely is. For a lot of Pistons fans that maybe aren't familiar with Lindy Waters, good 3-point shooter, can pass a little bit. The way he's kind of slated into the rotation is like I don't know what you would call it, like a third string power forward right now. Doesn't really get a whole lot of time. Plays power forward sometimes, also plays small forward. But Lindy Waters is definitely a player that if Tobias is in foul trouble, if Simone is in foul trouble, he can definitely, fill that void. I think last week he played 2 minutes and had 6 points, had 2 quick 3-pointers. He's got a really good release. Very smart, intelligent basketball player. For you guys that aren't really familiar, he was actually part of that huge Jimmy Butler trade that the Pistons got involved. He was with the Golden State Warriors on their bench. Funny enough, if you guys want to look it up, when the Pistons played the Golden State Warriors, okay, Isaiah Stewart, if you guys remember, when it was in Detroit, ripped the ball out of Lindy Waters' hand. I think I had posted the video on Twitter. And like 3 weeks later, they're teammates, which I always found like really funny that Stu did do that to Lindy Waters. But honestly, he's a good player. Maybe the Pistons look to bring him back as well if they can't, re-sign a Tim Hardaway Jr. I think he's a player that's very versatile. I think realistically, you could play him 2 through 4, just the way, he can defend and shoot the basketball. But yeah, David, if you want to check that video out, I'm pretty sure I posted it on Twitter, but like, yeah, their first interaction with each other was Stu trying to rip the ball out of Lindy Waters' hands, and Steph Curry and the Warriors bench are all laughing at Stu. And now they're teammates, right? Like, full circle moment. But I want to wrap up this podcast, you guys. We're going to have tons of Pistons content throughout the week. Usually have those scheduled around 9 a.m. We have shorts that get scheduled at 9 a.m. And then we have long form content from our podcast at 12 p.m. Every day on YouTube if you guys want to check that out. But on your way out, if you could, hit that like button. If you're an audio listener, would really appreciate it if you could rate this podcast and give us a 5-star review. But until next time, we'll see you guys immediately after the Detroit Pistons versus the Miami Heat post game. Hopefully it's a Pistons win and we start getting on this win streak and, inch closer to 40 wins this season. Have a good night, you guys. Peace. Go Pistons.